Welcome to our podcast, and this week at London Visited, we go to Marylebone to tell you all about this village part of central London. My name's Steve, and each week I'll bring to you the facts, history and information about different parts of this great capital. If you've been to London, are planning on visiting, live here or just love London from afar, then this is the podcast for you. Don't forget to visit our YouTube channel, London Visited, to see videos covering this place and so many others across London. And now to this week's podcast. Marylebone gets its name from a church dedicated to St Mary, represented by St Marylebone Parish Church in 1817. The original church was built on the bank of a small stream or bourne, called the Tybourne, or Tyburn. This stream rose further north in what became Swiss Cottage, eventually running through what became Marylebone Lane, which preserves its curve within the grid pattern. The church and the surrounding area later became known as St Mary at the Burn, afterwards corrupted to Marylebone, Marybone, Marylebone. French was the language of the aristocrats at the time, and eventually became Marylebone. The received pronunciation is Marylebone. However, Marylebone is commonly used. The manor of Tyburn is mentioned in the Domesday Book, 1086, as a possession of Barking Abbey, valued at 52 shillings, with a population of no greater than 50. Early in the 13th century, it was held by Robert de Vere, 3rd Earl of Oxford. At the end of the 15th century, Thomas Hobson bought up the greater part of the manor. In 1544, his son Thomas exchanged it with Henry VIII, who enclosed the northern part of the manor as a deer park, the distant origin of Regent's Park. Tyburn Manor remained within the Crown until the southern part was sold in 1611 by James I, who retained the deer park to Edward Forrest, who held it as a fixed rental under Elizabeth I. Forrest Manor of Marylebone then passed by marriage to the Austin family. The deer park, Marylebone Park Fields, was let out in small holdings for hay and dairy produce. In 1710, John Holles, Duke of Newcastle, purchased the manor for £17,500, and his daughter and heir, Lady Henrietta Cavendish Holles, by her marriage to Edward Harley, Earl of Oxford, passed it into the family of the Earl of Oxford, one of whose titles was Lord Harley of Wigmore. She and the Earl realised the need for fashionable housing north of Oxford Road, now Oxford Street, commissioned the surveyor and builder John Prince to draw a master plan that set Cavendish Square in a rational grid system of streets. The Harley heiress, Lady Margaret Cavendish Harley, married William, 2nd Duke of Portland, and took the property, including Marylebone High Street, into the Bentnick family. Such place names in the neighbourhood as Cavendish Square and Portland Place reflect the Dukes of Portland landholdings and Georgian-era developments here. In 1879, the 5th Duke died without issue, and the estate passed through the female line to his sister, Lucy Joan Bentnick, widow of the 6th Baron Earl Edward de Warden. Widow of the 6th Baron Howard de Warden. A large part of the area directly to the west was constructed by the Portman family and is known as the Portman Estate. Both estates have aristocratic ascendants and are still run by members of the aforementioned families. The Howard de Warden estate owns, leases and manages the majority of the 92 acres of real estate in Marylebone, which comprises the area from Marylebone High Street in the west to Robert Adams Portland Place in the east, and from Wigmore Street in the south to Marylebone Road in the north. In the 18th century, the area was known for ravish entertainments in Marylebone Gardens, the scene of bear baiting and prize fights by members of both sexes, and for the duelling grounds in Marylebone Fields. The Crown purchased the northern end of the estate in 1813. The Metropolitan Borough of St Marylebone was a metropolitan borough of the County of London between 1899 and 1965, after which, with the Metropolitan Borough of Paddington and the Metropolitan Borough of Westminster, it was merged into the City of Westminster. Marylebone is characterised by major streets on a grid pattern, such as Gloucester Place, Baker Street, Marylebone High Street, Wimpole Street, Harley Street and Portland Place, with smaller mews between the major streets. Mansfield Street is a short continuation of Chandos Street, built by the Adams brothers in 1770, on a plot of ground which had been under water. Most of its houses were fine buildings with exquisite interiors, which, if put on the market now, would have an expected price in excess of £10 million. It has attracted people who understand attractive buildings. Queen Anne Street is an elegant cross street which unites the northern end of Chandos Street with Welbeck Street. The painter J.M.W. Turner moved from 47 Queen Anne Street in 1812 from 64 Harley Street, now divided into numbers 22 and 23, and owned the house until his death in 1851. It was known as Turner's Den, becoming damp, dilapidated, dusty, dirty, with dozens of Turner's works of art now in the National Gallery scattered throughout the house. Walls covered in tack holes and a drawing room inhabited by cats with no tails. During the same period, a few hundred yards to the east, Chandos House in Chandos Street was used as the Austro-Hungarian embassy and residence of the fabulously extravagant ambassador Prince Paul Anton II at Terzi, seeing entertainment on a most lavish scale. The building is one of the finest surviving Adam houses in London, and now lets rooms. Marylebone is also home to the historical Nottingham Place. It is characterised by its ornate red buildings leading up to Marylebone Road. Most recently, in 2017-18, number 28 was home to notable Indian artists, musicians, diplomats and all-round Renaissance men. Their tenure was prematurely cut short. Wimpole Street runs from Henrietta Place north to Devonshire Street, becoming Upper Wimpole Street en route. The latter where Arthur Conan Doyle opened his ophthalmic practice at number 2 in 1891. A sixth-floor Grade II 18th century house at 57 Wimpole Street is where Paul McCartney resided from 1964 to 1966, staying on the top floor with girlfriend Jane Asher's family, home in a room overlooking Browning Mews, in the back, and with John Lennon writing "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on a piano in the basement. At her father's house at number 50 lived for some time between 1840 and 1845 Elizabeth Barrett, then known as the author of a volume of poems, and who afterwards escaped and was better known as Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Today, at the bottom end of Wimpole and Wigmore Street can be found the sandwich shop named Barrett's. Bentnick Street leaves Welbeck Street and touches the middle of the winding Marylebone Lane. Charles Dickens lived at number 18 with his indebted father, while working as a court reporter in the 1830s, and Edward Gibbon wrote much of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire while living at number 7, from the early 1770s. Manchester Square, west of Bentnick Street, has a central private garden with handsome plane trees laid out in 1776. The mansion on the north side of the square, now home to the Wallace collection that features world-class French 18th century painting, porcelains and furniture, once housed the Spanish ambassador, whose chapel was in Spanish Place. From the northwest corner is Manchester Street, final home of the Georgian-era prophet Joanna Southcott, who died there in 1814, having attracted a jeering mob with a report of a miraculous birth and prediction the Day of Judgment would arrive in the year 2004. Marylebone has some Beatles heritage with a John Lennon flat at 34 Montague Street and the original Apple Corps headquarters at 95 Wigmore Street. Borro Street, small and charming, is named after a Portman family estate in Buckinghamshire, itself named after a local family, there made good in Tudor days. Tucked away with a few terraced buildings, Borro Street has been the home of minor healthcare professionals for hundreds of years. The RADA student and aspiring actress Vivian Leigh, aged 20 in 1933, gave birth at the Rehair nursing home, then at number 9 to her first child. The north end of Welbeck Street joins New Cavendish Street, the name of which changed from Upper Marylebone Road after World War I. At the northern end of Marylebone High Street towards Marylebone Road, there is an area with colourful history, which includes the former Marylebone Gardens, whose entertainment included bare-knuckle fighting, a cemetery, a workhouse, and the areas frequented by Charles Worsley, all shut down by the close of the 18th century, where today there are mansion blocks and upper-end retail. At number 1 Dorset Street resided mid-Victorian scientist Charles Babbage, inventor of the analytical engine. Babbage completed that 2 adjacent Hackney coach stands in Paddington Street, ruined the neighbourhood, leading to the establishment of coffee and beer shops. And furthermore, the character of the new population can be inferred from the taste they exhibited for the noisiest and most discordant music. An acclaimed international venue for chamber music, the Wigmore Hall, opened at 36 Wigmore Street in 1901 and hosts over 500 concerts each year. There is something about this area which, although just off Oxford Street, still feels like a village and has that village feel as you walk down the middle of Marylebone High Street with its own independent shops. This is certainly a place to come and see, but also, to know its history, gives you an idea of some of the places to look for. So, I hope you've enjoyed our in-depth look at Marylebone Village. Whatever podcast service you use to listen to this, please do subscribe to get updates on new shows, and also please do leave us some feedback. Please also let me know any places you'd like us to feature in future podcasts, and let me know through our website www.londonvisited.co.uk, by emailing me directly on londonvisited@gmail.com, or contacting us on Twitter and Instagram on @LondonVisited, or Facebook on @TheLondonVisited. Thanks for listening. Really hope you enjoyed the podcast, and see you soon. Bye.